Oh, Phil, I could scarcely believe my eyes. Some of the most strategic, tactical, threatening, attacking play I've seen in quite some time. Frankly, having a great time.
Are we talking about the same thing here? You watched those 90 minutes, right?
Yeah, yeah, it was a was it 90 minutes? I don't. Most curling matches don't actually run that long, but it's been worth getting up at 7 a.m.
Did you say curling?
Yeah. Olympic curling, it's great.
Emergency podcast. They did a thing, so we gotta talk about it. Emergency podcast. It's an emergency. Emergency podcast. Shut up, oh yeah, shut up, oh yeah, shut up. Emergency podcast. It's an emergency.
Hey, a hearty hello to you all, and welcome to Emergency Podcast, the Austin FC podcast, where we talk about all the Austin FC emergencies, the Winter Olympics emergencies. Curling is here, all the sports. Got to watch some of the opening ceremonies, seeing bold nations with 2, 3, 4, 5 Olympians strutting out there compared to the US's massive throng. How are you doing, Moisés? How is Winter Olympics fever grabbing you? Clearly in the curling department.
I'm good. Curling is an underappreciated sport, and people are like, yeah, curling. Okay, that's hilarious. It's fascinating from a physics perspective. It's fascinating from a tactical perspective. If you were sleeping on curling because you don't think that it is a sport, first of all, there are more than a dozen videos on the internet that can disabuse you of that real quick. It is absolutely fascinating as a sport. I'll send you a YouTube link to put in the show notes. My favorite thing to pass around for people who are like, I don't get curling. You watch this and you're like, oh, okay, I get it. And the act of watching curling is a bit more laid back, a bit more chill than a lot of other sports. But I mean, same goes for snooker or billiards, darts, bowling even. It's a cool, laid back, chill sport that I think the more people I can convert to it, the better.
It's shuffleboard on ice, but you really have to put your back into it.
So much more than that. It's so much more than shuffleboard, Phil.
I said on ice.
You said on ice being the much bigger thing. Let's talk about the first game of the Coachella Valley Invitational. That's what everybody's here, right?
Let's do that. Yes. So let's first, though, before we get into that, some surprising news Friday morning, or pseudo news as it turned out. Have we been talking about the possibility of Myrto Uzuni moving? And maybe people thought that we were ridiculous for entertaining such notions in this particular preseason window. And lo and behold.
I feel quite validated. And that's not to say that I'm cheering that potential transfer or anything like that. But it was a thing that I thought bore mentioning, not because I had any sort of inside info or something, but just because at a certain point, well, everybody's for sale is the thing that had been said. And you just start wondering when you're going to see a player. And that isn't to say that he isn't still nursing a knock. Facundo Torres is still nursing a knock from when he was at Palmeiras. But yeah, it's interesting the way that the tables turn all of a sudden. People go from wishful thinking or you're dreaming or whatever to, no, I think there's something there.
Yeah, so if you hadn't tuned in to any soccer news yesterday, so it was Trabzonspor, which is one of the top teams in Turkey. It's located in Trabzon. It's a city on the Black Sea, northeast Turkey. Was apparently in for him, and according to reports, like player deal had been worked out, but things had not worked out with the teams. And the trading deadline for the Turkish Super League was yesterday, so that came and went. But that does indicate that there is still a market for Uzuni, and again, the thought being that if he doesn't move in this preseason window, which is looking less and less likely now, and actually with Vasquez and not knowing when he'll necessarily come back from the injury and be full strength and ready to go, maybe it does benefit Austin to get a half season of Uzuni's services and then move him on, because again, you can convert from that 3-3 to that 2-4 roster build halfway through the season. You don't have to declare your major as it was and stick with it. You can, like many college students that I know, change your major halfway through. So that is a possibility. So, and that would still bring $1 million of GAM is the way that I understand the Labyrinth and MLS rules. So theoretically you could get Uzuni having a chance to build up some confidence, to increase his market value, and then presumably be back to Europe in the summer if it doesn't happen with some other team now before the preseason window ends.
Yeah, and I think it's easy. It's very easy, as many people across the internet can attest, to shift into dunk on Uzuni mode. I think he's a good guy. I think he's somebody who really wants to perform well for his club. I mean, the way that he comported himself in that opening press conference at his spoke to, he wears his everything on his sleeve.
He really does, yeah.
There is not a filter between his focus and what comes out of his mouth. And it's one of the things I like most about him and think is most endearing about him. And I would love nothing more than for there was a fan who said that he would get a tattoo of Uzuni's face on his posterior if he won the Golden Boot this year. And hey, you know what? That's enough for me to want Myrto Uzuni to win the Golden Boot. I'm down for those odds. But yeah, looking at the roster situation, there's also been the chatter about, is Jorge Lostaway worth a supplemental slot? Do they really need him at the cost of using an international spot?
Right. 'Cause that's the thing.
There's a lot of that kind of talk as we're approaching the rosters locking. And I think, and we'll get into the game of the day, I think the way that the roster is currently and the roster depth that they need playing midweek matches in Open Cup during the first half of the 2026 season, presumably having some guys that are going to be expected to play in the World Cup who might be getting minutes restrictions as we get closer to that break, which hits on Memorial Day. I think that the playing of the roster depth, where we're seeing more of the second team players being played, Lostaway is one that I think you want to go ahead and lock up. The way that they talked was that the plan is to give him that supplemental slot and use that international roster slot on him unless he proves them wrong in these last 3 preseason matches. But looking at what opening up a DP slot with Uzuni in the summer does, that's interesting. What does that mean for a post-World Cup market that could be hot with talent that is looking to make a step away from Europe, a step away from South America, people who maybe are playing in those markets who have played in MLS in the past, like a Facundo Torres? What kinds of things are going to open up? And I think the biggest thing as revolves around Uzuni to me is not just get rid of him, just buy him out, just open up the DP slot, call Minnesota and see if they'll take $5 plus whatever they gave James for James Rodriguez. Throwing all that aside, I think that it's going to be psychologically a healthier thing for folks to go, maybe he goes at the very last second just before the season starts, but expect that he's going to be here for half of a season. Expect that if you're cheering this team on, you've got to give him a chance to prove you wrong again. I think leaning into it, assuming that I've seen things as wild as, he's going to tank the season and he's going to do this and he's going to do that. Demonstrably, this is a dude who gets along with other guys in the locker room. He's not a locker room nightmare. He had a bad season last season. I mean, there's no two ways to cut it. He had a bad season. He had some spectacularly bad moments. And I think that there's a better side of optimism to be had in going, let's just see how this season starts. Let's see how this season goes. Let's see how he can prove his doubters wrong.
Yeah. And that's the thing. He did still score some goals, even though, I mean, by his standards, by DP standards, it was not a good season, but he was still a contributor. And as we saw with the Coachella game today, it would have been nice to have him on the field.
It would have. It would have.
Because nobody else was really taking shots or, doing much of anything offensively.
Let me take a pull quote. Phil West, I need to see Myrto Uzuni on the field. I just need to quote you on that on a regular basis going forward.
Well, I want to see what he's got heading in. We're 2 weeks out from preseason, and the 2 big goal-scoring threats right now on this team are Myrto Uzuni and Facundo Torres, and we haven't seen either of them play a minute yet, and we haven't also seen Owen Wolf because, of course, he's out with the sports hernia surgery. So that doesn't necessarily bode well for this team, that we're not able to see their key offensive pieces being able to get on the field and seeing if they're gelling and clicking, let alone seeing the goals come in. Of course, we have not seen that now. We have 2 preseason games against MLS teams in the books, and Austin has been outscored in those 3-0 and has not looked terribly inspiring on the offensive end. Jaden Nelson has had some good moments, including one today, but other than that, it's been pretty bleak. It's been a desert of goal scoring, as it were, in the desert of Coachella.
Look at you flipping a Sonoran Desert bit of wordplay. Let me argue with you for a moment, Phil.
Sure.
Let me tell you what. I'm thrilled. Yeah. I'm thrilled to see them outscored 3-0. You want to know why?
Okay.
Because
tell me why.
Preseason for this team is very much about reorganizing how your back line operates.
Okay.
And sure. They need to get scored on to see where those holes are and see where they've got to connect together better defensively, because they're not doing it. And to me, that's the advantage of having a preseason. Is the best thing about what they do have available of their first choice guys is they have basically all of their backline guys except for Dessler that are available and that are going to be playing regular minutes together. And this is the time to figure that defensive stuff out. They figure that defensive stuff out, the quick counter verticality that it looks like they are wanting to press forward with this year, that frankly I think they wanted last year too. It looks like that is actually going to be possible because of the various pieces that they got on the field, but they've got to have that stability in the back line. Otherwise, none of that works.
Okay. Yeah. But again, we saw today they're susceptible to high press. They're still... Again, in these matches, you have one or two defensive lapses, and that's been kind of the story with Austin FC. They can be extremely organized for 89 minutes of a game, and then they can fall apart in that single minute, and that makes the difference. And that's been something that dates back to the Wolf era, not just a failing of Nico's teams. And it's something that certainly they know about. It's certainly something that they're conscientious about, but still, this is something that plagues the team. And it's something that, again, if they are really working on that this preseason, there's more work that needs to be done.
The other thing that I'll say about this game is that I really think you're going to laugh. The officiating, Phil, the officiating in this preseason friendly, infuriating. He was calling nothing in Austin's favor. The whistle that led to St. Louis's goal, Austin did not get any calls that favorable the entire time. To me, that's the other thing to look at this through the lens of, is this was two MLS teams, admittedly, MLS teams, playing with MLS Next Pro ass level officiating and vibes, not just the camera work, which was all over the place.
It's Coachella.
It's Coachella. They're on a scissor lift along with the commentator. It's not exactly the most sophisticated setup, but I will say that too. That does make a difference. And under MLS level scrutiny, MLS VAR, that sort of thing, this was higher tier players playing in the shadow of war that is the world of playing in MLS Next Pro, where you can have a center ref who just calls a spectacularly bad job of calling a game. And look, that's just how it is. But I think it's good for these guys that Coachella Valley works this way, where you're not getting the calls. You're not getting remotely the quality of standards of officiating, of line refs, of any of that kind of stuff that you get during the regular season. You've got to be faced with that kind of adversity where everything is not perfect and everything is not the $1 billion league.
Although there was a takedown of a St. Louis player by Kolmanich, which could have been a red card. And
completely justified. So, Kolmanich did nothing wrong. John is blameless.
Oh, you don't
think
so?
John's innocent. I'm in preseason mode, Phil. They can do no wrong. You know who still has not faced judgment for his capital crime? Diego Fagundes going after Svatak. Right. There's a warrant out for the guy. You got to watch out for him. The man is a felon out in the community, having gone after sweet, lovely Alexander Svatak, who never did anything wrong.
And still a free agent too. So interesting to see where our fair Diego Fagundes ends up. Former fan favorite of Austin turned villain at last year's Coachella in that incident. So anyway, do we get a little bit into the game? You didn't mention the announcing. Katie and Emmy did overhear me laughing uproariously at one of the Guilherme Biru mispronunciations.
It was fully French.
Yeah, so spent several minutes walking Emmy through how to pronounce Guilherme Biru.
Yeah,
which was fun.
On the announcing side of things, a couple things to mention A lot of times when we watch something on TV, we just take what the commentators say as fact because we're like, well, that's the guy on TV. They must know. They know
Like it's John Gallagher.
It's John Gallagher. But it's more that he kept referring to Brad Stuver as the team captain. I don't know that there's been a change in the captaincy, and that's been a whole topic of conversation in seasons past.
I mean, he's a captain.
He's a captain. He had the captain's armband when the game started. But when Ilie Sanchez came on, the captain's armband went on Ilie. So unless we're told otherwise, I don't think people should go, wait, is Brad the captain now? Don't worry about any of that kind of stuff. We're not having one of those kinds of seasons, y'all. We have more things and better things to talk about. I would assume, unless you're told otherwise, Ilie Sanchez is still captain of Boston FC.
Unless he's not on the field.
Unless he's not on the field. But we have many captains on the field, Phil. That's what we've been told for years now.
Yeah, exactly.
We have many captains on the field.
They're all leaders. Some are just not vocal leaders.
We don't have one ship. We have a fleet. That's what we got. We've got some serious, complex naval strategizing. So what else? What else?
There can't be mutiny
mind?
because they're all captains, right?
Exactly. There is no mutiny because it's a team full of captains. There you go. Boom, boom. That's leadership.
Well, the mutiny did exist in Tampa Bay.
The mutiny did exist in Tampa Bay before MLS fumbled early, but that's going to be on our MLS history podcast, 1.0 to 2.0 to what is this, 4.0, 4.5? Yeah. We don't know. Who knows?
We can do one of those. Yeah. By the way, a special emergency tangent coming up. We're planning. We think there are all the pieces in place now to where we can actually do this. So look for that coming up, ... All right. Is there anything really to say about this game other than Jayden Nelson had a nice play in the 12th minute where he was going upfield pass to John Gallagher, otherwise known as John Gallagher, if you are a announcer with little experience pronouncing Austin FC players. Had a shot that Roman Berkey had pretty easy time saving, and that was essentially all the offense in the first half. You had a Jeremy Biru. I'm not even going to bother to try to mispronounce it the way that announcer pronounced it, but had a header that went over the bar off a Joseph Rosales corner. Rosales is still playing left wing. That does not look like that is a entirely comfortable fit for him. That was most of the game, right? That was essentially kind of what we got action-wise, offense-wise. Simon Becher gets that 16-minute goal for St. Louis. That's all they need. They win 1-0, and that was on a high press that Danny Pereira in particular had a bad pass that led to the turnover and the opportunity which Becher converted. So again, that was them trying to play out of the back, and that was a little disastrous in that moment. And that was essentially the game, and then a whole lot of nothing otherwise as far as I experienced it.
Yeah, the announcer again said that Austin's playing in a 5-3-2 or a 3-3-1-3, and I'm like, stop throwing numbers at the wall. None of it means anything at this point. Thanks for your input, but I didn't know where 3-3-1-3 came from, but okay. Let's talk about Rosales on the wing. This has been a big topic of conversation. There are people who have called it the playing Buka on the left of this season. Is that how you feel about it? What do you think either results in a pivot in the decision of where to play Rosales, or what is it that wins you over in convincing you that the Rosales at left wing experiment can work?
If I'm seeing that create chances, if I'm seeing the team looking cohesive with him in that position, then yeah, maybe it works. Maybe there's some credence to it. Maybe it's something that should continue. I feel like it's kind of a stopgap right now. I think it's maybe Estevez is experimenting with it just to see, can he do that in a pinch? Like, I still think wingback is his best position. I still think that that's probably where he's going to end up at the start of the season, just because you are going to have to play Torres. You are going to have to, Facundo Torres, obviously, not Irvin Torres, although we did see Irvin get some minutes.
We did.
And we'll probably see him have some sort of role this year. But you could then obviously shift Nelson over to left wing, which is sort of his preferred position, even though his best game last year was at right wing. So certainly he can do that. But if the plan is Rosales at left wing and then Facu at the 10, that's weird, but could be something. But it feels like it's too smart, if that makes sense. It feels like maybe Nico's trying to
galaxy brain
outthink all the other coaches who have come before him, who have played Rosales at wingback, where he's been one of the better wingbacks in the league.
To your point, to me, that really nice breakaway with Jayden and John, that to me, when you see something like that involving Rosales, that's when I think I can get on board with and understand the Rosales at left wing thing. I think, like the city of Austin, having a team that is overloaded on the left wing, not the worst thing. If you really are looking to overpower from one particular side, or even just project the idea that you're overloading on one side and then having guys that can invert real quick and reorganize themselves. I'm looking forward to seeing the more complex version of what it is they're trying to do with this when they actually are in competitive minutes.
Sure.
Which I'm convinced that there is a fair amount of the tactical plan that is being held back. And I don't know why you wouldn't do that, right? You don't.
Well, it could have a lot to do with Owen Wolf too.
Precisely. Like
it could have him as the 8 nominally start with, but then you can shift Rosales inside, you can shift Owen outside, and you can do some playing around with it that way.
It's very much street racing without your big boost engine being activated. You've got multiple pieces that are missing in the mechanism of what we know they are going to try to do. Where I'm not gonna paint these guys as, oh, well, this is the reserve squad and the real guys are coming in. It's some of the top guys are definitely not in at the moment. And this is a partial version of the formation that I think we really see it cook when those additional elements of chemistry come in.
Yeah. And they're pretty big pieces that are missing,
Big time.
like we covered before. So you shouldn't get too worried about the results here because
not at all.
Yeah, this is not the team that you're going to see even opening day, but it's not really inspiring much confidence right now. And it is, I mean, again, like this simpler stripped down version where you have Rosales on the left wing and you have Nelson on the right wing and then Fodry as a center forward. It's not really producing much in the way of chances. So that is to me concerning. Again, you're going to get obviously more chances. You're going to get the offense better when you have Facu in, when you have Uzuni in, and when you have Owen in. But right now, with just those pieces against, again, it's MLS teams, but it's also MLS teams that are in preseason mode and kind of mixing and matching a little bit with reserve players and starting players. It is a little worrisome that there's just such little lethality in what they're doing right now.
What I think we're actually seeing is in actual play, I would see CJ playing left wing and Rosales at wing back when they are on the attacking footing in the early part of a game. They get out in the lead where we see CJ at center forward and Rosales on the wing. That to me is the after subs formation. We're just seeing it starting the games instead of where it comes later in the flow of a game. That to me is the logic that I've got in the back of my head, which I don't think I'm doing too much extra lifting there on going, this is what the galaxy brain of Nico's trying to do. I think realistically, a lot of people are very quick to go, this Nico, he's a madman. He's a psychopath. How could he possibly play Joseph Rosales on the left wing? The craziest man in world soccer. How could he possibly? To me, that's exactly the crazy like a fox situation of what we're seeing right now because of those notable pieces that are missing. That's how it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
If the plan is really to deploy Rosales on the left wing, default starter, and that's the attacking shape, that really is confusing to me. But for where we are right now, it doesn't seem crazy considering what there is on the field.
Okay. Yeah. And I can see that. I can see wanting to work on that. It's just, it is frustrating to see where it's at right now and trying to picture where it's going to go exactly. But again, disappointing today that we still didn't see Facu in there. We still didn't see Myrto in there. I would imagine next week they should be ready to at least get some minutes. I would imagine, of course, we are not going to see that game against the Fire, but we are going to see the game against SKC on Valentine's Day. Yes.
So regarding the Fire game, Phil, do we have hire someone to be our surreptitious live stream bootlegger? Somebody who can get a phone on like a selfie stick arm and bootleg live stream it for us?
That'd be great.
Do we have a budget for that? Maybe just like Goodwill and a dozen cookies or something. I'm just trying to figure out how the Verde All Day Nation can show up and sneak their eyes into that Fire game so that we're not just relying on people sending text updates from next Wednesday. That to me is what we need, is somebody who will share a live stream with us.
Okay. Well, if anybody is out there, let us know.
Okay. All right.
That would be great. Yeah. So, but I am curious to see just kind of what the difference might be between what we saw today, what we saw against New York City, and then theoretically, if you have those attacking pieces in there next Saturday, does that make a difference? And that to me is kind of the big overarching question at this point in the preseason. And then just in 2 weeks' time, obviously, with Minnesota, we were wondering about kind of their lack of players coming in. It seemed like a lot of players going out, not many coming in. And then all of a sudden we have James, or James, as he is sometimes known. James Rodriguez is now going to be a Minnesota United loon, which to me is wild, unexpected, but there he is. So they have to game for him. They have to figure out like what he's going to bring to the table offensively and how to defend against that. It's going to be very interesting. And I think there's a whole kind of added dimension to this match now that I did not expect even at this time last week.
It has the potential for being chaotic in a different way than I think anybody anticipated, because it could be that Just Add James works. It could be that Just Add James, he's in a 10-1 formation and he's just king of the world in his mind and not really caring to link up with his teammates. And he is one of those singular personalities who you don't know how he's going to integrate at a given club. He has been at no club for more than a year for years now. Yeah. And you pair that with a new coach, you pair that with a turned over roster. Who knows? I think the vibes between Austin fans and Minnesota fans, considering everything that's going on in Minneapolis, I think that's going to be on point. I think it's going to be a great atmosphere. In terms of the play on the field, I think the thing that Nico and Du Bois has got to prepare for is it could be that Minnesota completely unknits themselves around trying to integrate James, who, let's see if he actually has much, if any, of a preseason, other than being signed and being locked in and being on their roster. If you're signing a James, do you play him in the season opener? Of course you do, but how many minutes does he get? And how happy is he if he's coming off the bench? How unhappy is he if he's coming off the bench?
And I think he's playing now, actually, or at least his team is playing right now.
Okay. It's Minnesota versus Kansas City.
Yeah. And let's see. It does not look like he is on the lineup at all. So gonna take a little time to integrate him. So I don't even know if he is. I don't even know if he's in Indio at this point.
Yeah, do they even have boots in his size? I mean, they got to order that stuff.
But one thing that I am curious about is, again, Josh Wolf did not have the players that he necessarily needed to operate the kind of system that he wanted. Imagine if you would throw like James onto that 2022 Austin team, like maybe what they could have done. Josh Wolf is now an assistant coach who has James to deploy as a heliocentric number 10. So I'm curious as to what they will cook up. I'm very, very curious to, first of all, just to know what kind of role he's going to have, Josh Wolf, that is, with Cam Knowles as the head coach, but then also what he might do, what he might try to implement offensively if he does have considerable say in that with a player of James's caliber in there.
Well, so here's another thing that you bringing this up is giving me homework to do, knowing that it looks like I think we're going to be able to watch any of Minnesota's preseason matches that we want out at Coachella. They're playing Sporting Kansas City, who does Sporting Kansas City still only have 14 players on their roster? That's the other aspect of this is if Minnesota is having trouble with a Sporting Kansas City that does not have a full roster yet, that's a good thing for Austin fans. And depending on how that goes in the 2 games to come, here's what will worry me, whipping back around to Austin, is if we get to Valentine's Day and it turns into a Valentine's Day massacre and Sporting Kansas City runs all over them. That's a very bad sign to me. That's a version of preseason not being a liar. That's the result today doesn't concern me at all. Even Chicago Fire absolutely splatters them across the wall like a bucket of paint, whatever. That doesn't bother me too much. But if we get to next Saturday and Austin is having fundamental link-up play issues, if those presumed locked-in starters who we were told were expected to get some minutes in the season opener, including Owen Wolf, we were told by second weekend of Coachella, the hope is to have him in playing minutes. If he's still not back in, that's a little bit concerning, but I'm more concerned if Uzuni's not playing. Mm-hmm. If Uzuni's not playing by next Saturday, I don't know what's going on. Kundo, because we don't know as much about the knock that he sustained, not as worried if we don't see him by next Saturday. But I think that there are things surrounding Austin that it's more interesting to look at than to try to read the tea leaves of limited video clips from next Wednesday against Chicago Fire, stills, score lines, that kind of thing. I think it'll be more interesting to see what the rest of the league is looking like as we approach opening day, specifically these Western Conference opponents that Austin's going to be playing in those first few weeks. That may be something for us to look at next time we record.
Previews are coming, by the way, so there will be a glut of previews. That was starting to work on right now.
That was what I was needling you for. I can't wait for those
previews.
Those Phil West season previews, and just I love being able to. It's like I'm at the sushi bar, and the sushi chef is ready to grace me with a brilliant array of glorious pieces of cut fish. And I'm just mentioning things like, oh, you know, that the Sporting Kansas City, it looks awful over there.
There's also a non-soccer facet that I'm very excited to roll out.
Okay.
Which you will see coming.
Can't wait.
And the plan is 5 a day from the 15th through the 20th. So it's a lot of writing.
That's a lot of writing. That's a lot of previews. And frankly, like the compressed nature of it, it has to go that way because of the way that rosters lock in and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like it's hard to do season previews even now, just because if you were talking last week about Minnesota, you're talking about Minnesota pre-James versus with James, and that makes a huge difference. SKC did field a complete lineup today. I do recognize most of the names.
Okay.
Most
of the names. Not. All right.
So I'm a little concerned about their back line, unless I don't know that names like Justin Reynolds, Ian James, or Wyatt Meyer inspire much confidence.
Those names don't ring a bell as SKC2 players. So
no,
because those I can usually pick out pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, like Sulemanyov, Joveljic, Salawi, Manu Garcia. I mean, those are some mainstays from last year. Calvin Harris is on this team now. The former, I think, Generation Adidas player, not the DJ, not the
right.
What's the song about the 90s? Acceptable in the 90s, was it?
Yeah.
The magic of editing.
Acceptable in the 80s, which makes a lot more sense.
I was like, I feel like there was something that didn't feel right about that.
Flannel was acceptable in the 90s.
There you go. That's it. The comparison I would put out there between Austin and SKC is Austin is missing key guys. SKC is missing key guys that are not even on the roster. It's one thing for them to be on the roster, on the squad, but just out and being held back to prevent preseason injuries that puts them back on the injured reserve list. But SKC, I don't know what's going on with their sporting operation, that they are this thin, this close to the season. And I hate to bring up the misfortune of the Whitecaps of what they're going through, but there's not having the players, and there's literally not having the field to play on. So we could be looking for an especially strange start to the MLS season, depending on how things develop in a few different directions. And the teams that have SKC early in their schedule, that is something that I think is a fortunate bit of chance for teams like San Jose, Columbus, San Diego, LA Galaxy, Colorado.
Yeah.
That is not a spread of opponents that I would want to have as my first swath of opponents if I were Sporting Kansas City. But who knows? They might have Cristiano Ronaldo. Phil, have you heard? He's not happy with the Saudi Pro League.
That was last year's rumor. So,
but they still want him, I think.
Okay. I mean, we'll see. It seems real tempting, right? So yeah, clearly that's where he would go and not LAFC, right?
Yeah. Why would he?
Alice Due, he had some run out. He did not start, but he got about the last half hour. Didn't look as impressive to me as he did in the NYC game, but still looked like he was semi-belonged out there.
Yeah, he can hang.
Yeah.
He can hang.
It's just a matter of, is he going to do enough? Again, that supplemental, no problem if it was just that, but supplemental plus international that's the part of the equation where it gets tricky.
To me, in isolation, I get that in isolation. In context, to me, what else are they using the international slot for? Other teams are selling them for this much. Yeah. But if there isn't a market for that other slot that they need to stay roster compliant, I think they need the actual legs on the ground more than they need just random gam.
Although earlier this week, Austin did sell RSL an international spot for half of an international spot. So they get it back in the summer for a very specific $235,000. So that is the roto move of the offseason so far. So definitely applaud him for a $235,000 half a season international spot.
I'm telling you.
And they still have one left to play with, right? So
Yeah.
they don't have senior roster spots, but they could do a supplemental plus international with Alice Due if they really feel that that is worth the investment and that he is going to have those significant moments or significant minutes that are available to him in 2026, which, as you were talking about at the start here, could be the case given all the competitions and given, again, we know that there are some players who are theoretically going to be out on international duty. Obviously, Nelson vying for Canada, Facu vying for Uruguay, Albania in the playoff next month. So Uzuni could be on his way to the World
As well
Cup
as Ukraine.
well. Yeah, right. So,
Yeah.
but although Alice Due is probably not going to sub in for Svatok, I wouldn't think.
No, I don't think so. But
Right.
just in the overall spread, they're a bunch of guys that yes, the international break in March, MLS is actually treating it like an international break. Very strange for MLS to treat an
good for
international
you.
break
Yeah.
like what it is.
Yeah.
Sure, yes, but also I can very much see these guys that are facing a Mundial wanting to conserve their minutes themselves, their national teams wanting them to conserve their minutes in advance of those crucial will they, won't they be in a World Cup games in particular. So yes, the calendar is the calendar, but there's also the shades of gray on the edges of that calendar to me. The other thing I'll say about Alastue, and I feel confident, almost like placing a bet for a friend who is not currently here, but he'll be back at the table soon. Our friend Hernan Gonzalez from We're Austin TV, he and I are both very high on Jorge Alastue. I feel confident saying that he would back me up on this, that the talk of verticality, the talk of sudden striking, piercing, attacking threat, like a venomous snake snapping out of the grass, that sort of thing that we saw glimmers of, very little glimmers of, but glimmers of today, that's what he is especially useful for. As young and spry as those legs are, that's exactly the kind of thing that they need to be able to spring those traps. And that guy can play those full 90 and not be gassed like some of his more senior teammates can do most of. He can still do literally all of it. And to me, we've definitely not seen his ceiling, and upping his game by putting him in competitive MLS minutes is something that I am very confident, having seen him play next pro minutes and bursting at the seams to be playing first team minutes the way that CJ Fodre was for so long.
Yeah.
But a little different as an attacking midfielder, a different kind of talent. I would say with a potentially higher ceiling than CJ Fodre has in a number of respects. No offense to CJ. Right. Calvin J, you're great. We love you. You're wonderful. Run for that corner flag. Your best friend. I think that CJ and Jorge are great examples of the future development pipeline plans of this club, is looking at these guys who have played impressive third division minutes and are going to surprise people when given the biggest stage to impress upon. The CJ miracle in Minnesota, to me, that's the kind of surprise and delight that I would love to think that Austin FC fans have to look forward to in the future.
Right. But I mean, Fodry's also a Generation Adidas player.
Yep.
So there is some pretext for that, right? So there is some sense that, he is going to be able to produce in this league because he's identified as one of the top super draft picks. And again, super draft is an unconventional way in 2026 to get roster players, but it does still happen. But Alice Due is more of a Spanish connection, where did this guy come from sort of pick. And I am not as high on him as you are. I do not regard him as my medium-sized adult son as you regard him. But I think he's good. I think he's got promise, and I don't think supplemental plus international for him is that outlandish.
Not at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's unconventional. Certainly, it's weird. Like, you normally don't make that kind of roster spend in MLS, but I think there's a certain amount of minutes that he could fill in and do well with. I think there's some goal contributions in him. He does still have the only goal scored by Austin in 2026 so far.
This is true.
Four
This is true.
preseason games in, not to worry.
This is true. Like, let's not damn him with the preseason legend Jorge lost away label. You know,
Shades of Rodney. Yeah.
yeah, many goals scored in training. King Rodney Redes. Not at all an apt comparison, but yeah, I think I'm very comfortable as somebody not engaging in the MLS sanctioned betting of Polymarket. I'm not personally engaging in a bunch of sports betting, but the sentimental bet that I think I'm very comfortable laying is that Jorge Lostaway is going to surprise some people this season.
Yep. I think so too. And not just in MLS Next Pro. Right.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, it's a different league, Phil. It's a completely different league.
Oh, I know.
Well, actually, here's a goofy factoid that I'll drop. So I was looking at the MLS Next Pro roster rules. And you know that thing in MLS where if a player gets a green card, then their international slot immediately gets freed up, right? In the MLS roster rules.
Mm-hmm.
In MLS
and that's
Next,
new. Yeah.
and that's new. In MLS Next Pro, at least as the roster rules currently read, if it doesn't arrive before, I think it's July 18th, the slot does not open back up.
Oh, okay.
So they're separate leagues, Phil. Separate leagues, separate rules. They're completely separate things. Definitely one is not a feeder division of the other league. So, yeah, there are ways in which MLS Next Pro is not leading the way. MLS Next Pro is falling behind when it comes to green cards opening up roster slots again.
Right. But leading the way is with breaking ties with penalty kick shootouts.
Oh, man. Hiroto's never going to come on the show again if you talk about these penalty kick shootouts. He's never going to come back.
I kind of want to see it. I kind of want to see it in MLS.
The only reason I would want to see it is the way that it would blow up people's already tenuous perceptions of how real of a league MLS is. It very much is a very American way of changing a sport that does not work that way in any other part of the world. American imperialism on the march toward PK shootouts.
There can't be draws. There has to be a winner.
Yes.
All right. Anything else we need to attend to on this fine Coachella day?
Well, I feel like the new away jersey will be revealed by the time we record next, or it'll be on the verge of being officially revealed.
10th at 10 a.m. is my understanding.
10th at 10 a.m. Okay. We'll see for ourselves whether we believe in the cool mint stripe.
Yeah. And the black accoutrements, we shall say, on that green and white striped jersey.
Yes.
Ruining a good aesthetic is my kind of early prediction. But again, I do want to see it. I do want to see it live. I do want to see it on people. I do want to see it in the Verde store from the Verde van, wherever it can be gotten in these early days. And then we probably will see it on the field, I'm imagining. No, we're not going to see it on the field on the 11th, except in the stills, because we're not getting that streamed. But I imagine that we would see it the 14th when they play SKC. And maybe SKC will have their new home jerseys too, which are banging. They are really good. So they are one of the better ones in the league.
As we're grasping at crumbs, I think we would need to look up, have teams played in their new jerseys in Coachella games in the past. I don't remember off the top of my head if they have.
I think so. I want to say yes.
I think so. You got to market that stuff. So because you bring up the jersey ruining black accoutrement, because we're nothing if not a gradually getting more and more French podcast. Here's where I will disagree with a previous assertion of yours that, if it had been like a nice forest green or something like that. Okay, conceptually, I get it. However, in practice, in actual view on TV cameras, I think the black provides sharper and better contrast is the bigger thing. If we were only concerned with how good it looks in person from an aesthetic standpoint and everything, I feel like the televisualization of things plays heavily into various ways in which I think the clubs have a fair amount of freedom in design, but I feel like every jersey is going to have at least one of the two colors on it, but generally Verde. It's going to be Verde. And as many of them as possible are going to also have black on them. The original mint kit had black text and stripes on it. I feel like there are some of those kinds of things that they may play with over time, but in this case, with the rest of it being so light toned, they needed the sharper contrast of full on black.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see how it looks. If we are purely concerned about aesthetics, we wouldn't have jersey sponsors at all. That's a whole other conversation. So,
well, go to Chelsea
So
if you
you
don't
would
want
just-
jersey sponsors.
yeah. Well, there is that. Okay, I think that's going to wrap us up for this week. Go Seahawks. That's the only other thing?
Absolutely go Seahawks. As someone who does
Okay.
not care about the NFL whatsoever, in this
Right.
game, I care about the Seahawks winning resoundingly.
Okay, there we go. All right, have a good week, y'all, and we will talk to you after the SKC game and see how many players Austin will actually be playing against.
This is the best finger food in the history of the 8 years I've been on this planet.